Good morning, Year 6, and welcome to this second Jigsaw lesson of our remote learning period. And today, we are going to look at a couple of different cultures, quite contrasting cultures, really. So first of all, I wonder if any of you would know who this is. I don't know if anyone out there has got Scottish parents or grandparents, but this person is called Robert Burns, and he was born on the 25th of January in 1759. So what's that? About 261 years ago, is that right? Something like that. So who is he and what is he? Robbie Burns, or Rabbi Burns as the Scots say. Well, he's a Scottish poet, and if you notice, the birthday is the 25th of January. So that is on Monday, and Scottish people all around the world will be celebrating the birth of Robert Burns because he was a very famous poet, and to Scots he was, to a degree at least, the Scottish equivalent of the English version of William Shakespeare. If you'll just excuse me, I've got to pause. Sorry about that. So, Robbie Burns was probably most famous for writing the song or poem Auld Lang Syne, which people sing on New Year's Eve. I don't know if you've ever joined in or seen it performed. People link arms and sing, "Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot for the sake of Auld Lang Syne?" That's Auld Lang Syne, and that was written by Robert Burns. And it's his birthday on Monday, and as I say, they will celebrate all across the world. Scots will celebrate that. How will they celebrate? Well, they will eat this funny thing here on Burns night. It's called a haggis. It's a bit like a fat sausage, really, and it tends to traditionally be had like this: haggis, neeps and tatties. Neeps is turnip, or swede as we call it, Swedish turnip. So mashed swede and mashed potato. So haggis, neeps and tatties, and that's traditionally what people have on Burns night, as a Burns night supper. And if we were in school this week and next week, then with the military kids we would have been marching up and down the hall to Scotland the Brave and sampling a bit of haggis and Scottish shortbread, I'm sure. However, what's Robbie Burns got to do with today's Jigsaw lesson? Answer: absolutely nothing, except perhaps that for this week's celebration, we are celebrating people who keep trying even when it's difficult. And thinking of Burns night, or Burns's birthday on Monday, I was thinking of other Scottish famous people, and that brought me to this man here, Robert the Bruce. He was King of Scotland, and he was born even further ago, about 850 years ago, in 1274. Now, he was King of Scotland and declared Scotland to be an independent country from England, and the current King of England, Edward I, was not happy about this and basically took an army up to defeat King Robert the Bruce. And almost succeeded. Basically won lots of battles, smashed the army, kidnapped and captured Robert the Bruce's wife and children and locked them in the Tower of London. And Robert the Bruce had to flee and went and hid in a cave. And the story is that despite all of the battles that he'd fought and lost and all of the trouble he'd found himself in, he was sat in a cave, and the story is that he was sat in this cave and he saw a spider. Can you see this spider here in this picture and in this picture? It was a spider trying to weave a web, and it kept failing. It kept dropping down, and it tried again, and it fell down, and it tried again. And as Robert the Bruce sat there watching this spider try again, he realized that if a spider could have so much determination to keep trying and to keep working at it and eventually succeed in creating its spider web, then he must do the same. So he got himself together, he went back out of the cave, formed another army, and after many years of fighting, eventually beat the English. King Edward I died, and his son Edward II took over, and Robert the Bruce beat Edward II's army, and they eventually all fled back to England, and Scotland was an independent country led by King Robert the Bruce, and it stayed an independent country for about the next 275 years, and only joined England when a Scottish king, James VI, became the first king of England. And so that's why England and Scotland became one country again, not because England invaded it, but because we had a joint king with Scotland who was Scottish. So James VI of Scotland was the same as James I of England. Well, that's a bit of history, and that's just an example of a person who we're celebrating this week who kept trying even when it was difficult. Now we're going to have a little calm time, and we tried this last week. I don't know if you found it easy at home or not, but I'm going to try again. This might be the only time of the week where we get an opportunity just to sit quietly, focus on our breathing, and calm down just for a minute or so. So I'm going to strike a note on my guitar. I want you to listen carefully to the note, and while you do, just do nothing but focus on your breathing. Feet firmly on the floor, hands loose in your lap. Either close your eyes or look somewhere in a vacant distance and listen. And breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, slowly breathing in and breathing out. Focusing on your body as it breathes in and as you breathe out. Other distractions come into your mind, acknowledge they're there and let them go away by focusing on your breathing again. Breathe in and breathe out. And remember, whenever you're getting uptight, worried about trying to access your learning online, other stresses that are trying to crowd your mind, just remember you can always come back to this place of closing your eyes and focusing on your breathing. Breathing in and breathing out. Listen for the note one more time. Okay, well, I hope you found that useful, and we're going to get on with the rest of our lesson. And now we're going to look at a completely different culture. We've looked at the Scottish culture and Scottish history. Now we are looking at a different culture. This is a culture based in North America, and I wonder if you know what these are and who they represent. They're called totem poles, and they are made by the Native Americans of North America. And I've got some pictures here of traditional images of Native Americans. When I was a young man, we would call them Indians, or even more frankly, inappropriately, we would say Red Indians. But now we have learned more and understand more about other people's cultures, and we refer to them as Native Americans. So, and there were lots of different Native American tribes, but they made these totem poles. And the reason for these totem poles were a sort of imagery to remind people of famous stories. These images up and down the totem pole don't specifically tell a story. It's not once upon a time there was this creature and it did this and it did this. It doesn't mean that. It's just to remind people of the story. I suppose you could compare it, if we go back a few slides, you could compare it to a statue like we have in our country, a statue of someone. That doesn't tell us the story of Robert the Bruce, who actually beat one of his opposing knights, who was better armed than him, and he only had an axe on his horse and he defeated the opposition. That doesn't tell the story, but it reminds Scots of this person and what he did and what he represents. Well, that's the same thing that these totem poles do. So I would like you today to think back to those goals you set last week. You had a goal in school and a goal out of school, and I want you to think about ways in which you could achieve those goals and what steps you need to take to achieve those goals, and what qualities and what strengths you need to achieve them. So we've got a blank totem pole here, and I would like you at the end of this lesson to try and copy this totem pole as best you can, or make your own version of it, and I want you to put in the top here what your goal was from last week. Choose one of the goals, what it is you want to achieve. And then what I'd like you to do is to start at the bottom and see if you can come up with at least 3 things, 1, 2, and 3 things that will help you achieve your goal. And while you're at it, you can use the wings of this totem pole to give examples of the strengths you've got that will help you achieve those goals. The things that you can do, the things you know you can achieve because of your strengths. What strengths will help you achieve those goals? Now then, when I decided I wanted to leave the military and become a teacher, I started looking into it. I thought, right, I'll just become a teacher. And then I discovered that I needed to have a GCSE in science, and I didn't have a GCSE in science. And so that was a bit of a problem, because I couldn't even start to study to be a teacher until I'd got that qualification. So I had to take some steps to achieve my goal. So I've completed a totem pole as a very simple example of how I achieved my goal. Up here, my goal was to pass my GCSE science. And down the bottom here, the first thing I had to do was find a GCSE course for adults. Find somebody or some way that would teach me the required syllabus, etc., for a GCSE in science. So I did that and found a course that I could do online and from a distance. And then the next thing I had to do in my step was to take those lessons and study really hard. I couldn't go to school in a classroom with others and do it. I had to read books, follow lessons that were sent to me either online or through the post, and I had to study really hard to get it. At the end of that, when I was ready, I then had to sit an exam, my GCSEs. I sat an exam in a school hall like at TCC, full of 16-year-old children looking at this old man. I was probably 40-something by then. What was this strange man sat at the back of the class trying to sit his GCSE exams for? So I had to actually sort of be quite strong there, really, be quite determined. And so my strengths that helped me get through were determination. I was determined to succeed, and aspiration. I really wanted to become a teacher, and I knew I had to do this to become a teacher. So I had to work hard to achieve my aspiration. So I did that. I sat my exam, I became qualified, and I passed my GCSE science. Now I could almost have another totem pole then, because I then had to study to be a teacher. I then had to take my test to become a teacher and take my exams, and eventually became qualified as a teacher. So that's a very small example of the way in which I set out my totem pole to achieve one of my goals in life. Now we'll go back to a blank one. You can pause this and you can copy it as you like in your books. This is in your topic book, please remember. Please don't send me a message saying, where do I do it? Do it in your topic book, okay? and copy this totem pole out, or change it if you like, make it your very own. But I still want to see your goal at the top, and I want to see steps to success. How are you going to achieve that goal? And then for the wings, I would like you to focus on the strengths that will help you achieve it. Once you've done that, you've made it as colourful as you like and as detailed as you like, then take a photograph of it and send it into your teachers. This is the end of your Friday morning, at the end of a second full week of remote learning. I hope you're all well. Well done for all the fantastic work you've done so far. Make sure you watch Mr. Hamlin's celebration assembly today, and I hope you have a lovely weekend. Bye bye everyone.